you had decided to make any lineup changes for tonight.
Not starting.
What kind of, maybe starting the second half kind of lineup changes?
I think one of the things, Bill, that we're really going to try to do is just continue to be us, and that is play our depth. And I think that, one of the things that helped get us here was everybody being ready and everybody contributing, sometimes 9 deep, sometimes 10 deep, sometimes 12 deep. And I think that with our team, that's a real positive thing. So we're not going to change anything with the starting lineup. Starting lineup started well each of the first 2 games. And, we'll see where it goes from there.
Might you play somebody who hasn't played so far,
I might.
Like Gerald Wallace?
Any of the guys that are active are eligible to play, and certainly we'll consider playing any of them.
Coach, when you talk about just kind of sticking to what you guys have done, which is use your depth, how do you go about figuring out just the right combinations to go with as far as who to give extended minutes to, who to play, when you have, as we've seen all season, a lot of evenness within your roster?
Well, I think you just, this is our 85th game. Obviously not this team, not this group of guys, but I think we got a pretty good feel for each guy. I think you can see early a lot of times. And I think that, again, we've got a good idea of what each guy can do with each group. So, that stuff's all stuff we've thought about and talked about and, overanalyzed probably. But that's why I'm glad there's not more than 48 hours in between games.
Coach Kyle from Comcast Sportsnet. You haven't been afraid to shake up the lineup, even mid-game, coming out at halftime. Being down 0-2, is there a shorter leash for some guys now, and do you got to give maybe a quicker hook to some guys now?
I don't think we've been ever afraid to make changes at any time. So 0-2 has nothing to do with it. It's this game. So coach this game as its own entity, and go from there. Right when I've gotten to the point where I've considered changing with this group, these guys have played really well. And I think there's a factor there too.
Coach, Mark D'Amico, Celtics.com. No one in that starting group has scored more than 12 points yet in a game in this series. How can you get those guys to be a little bit more aggressive and try to provide a little bit more punch on the offensive end?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we're not going to expect them to play the whole day. So it's how do you start as a group? So it's not, I don't expect anybody to go for 15 in the first 5 minutes. The way that they're choosing to guard a couple of our guys, again, they've got to be more opportunistic than maybe in other situations, and then we have to have other guys take advantage of that. And I believe they will. One of the things that I believe in are the people on our team. And, I want them to know that, and that's why I think they'll play really well.
Howard Beck with Bleacher Report. Hey, Brad. When you took the job, did you have a realistic sense in your own mind, given the roster you were taking at that time, about how long it might take to get back to a playoff level? What was a realistic timeline in your own head at that time?
Howard, I could sit up here and act like I know what that answer would be. I didn't know anything. I was clueless. And, I knew that I was intrigued by the NBA. I knew about the history and tradition of the Boston Celtics. I knew that I had watched a ton of it. I knew that I was enthralled by the basketball side of things, and I knew that this ownership group and this management team were as supportive to the people in their organization as anybody around. And that's what I knew coming here. But as far as like a timeline of how long it's going to take to get to ultimately where we want to go, which obviously we've still got a lot of strides to make, but as far as timeline, we didn't really put a timeline on ourselves, because I'm not sure I would have known, how long it's supposed to take. We just tried to coach every day and coach whoever was in the building, which changed quite often, and look at that as a great opportunity to try to get as many guys in here to recognize, how committed we are to each and every one of them.
If I asked the same question but subbed in opening night of this season instead of when you first took the job, what would the answer be?
I thought we were better. thought we were better. I didn't know what that would mean, you know. And again, being naive is probably a good thing. I remember, you know, one of our assistants said, you know how hard it is to improve by 8 games. It's really a difficult thing to do. But I like being a little naive in that regard. But I thought we were better. I thought structurally, offensively, we were going to be better. I thought structurally, defensively, we were going to be better. You know, obviously, we played really well on opening night. But I think that I just felt like, regardless, even when we were 13-26 and going through all our roster changes, I just felt so much better structurally than I felt last year at any point in time.
Adam Himmelsbach, Boston Globe.
Hi, Adam.
Brad, you mentioned the other day about Isaiah keeping him right around 30, 31 minutes. Is that something he indicated to you that that's where he's comfortable, or is it something you see when he starts to pass that threshold, or is it just kind of a general idea you have about where he should be?
Very few ideas are general. They're all, you know, done a lot of work on those. I think he's a really good player. I think there are games where he could play, you know, maybe a little bit more than that and be really, really successful, and hopefully will be when that opportunity arises. I also think that, you know, when he's out of the game, we have a different look, that we can do different things too. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But him playing 30 minutes is a lot different than somebody else playing 30 minutes who stands in the corner. He has the ball all the time, and we're asking him to do quite a bit in that 30 minutes. So it's a little bit different, the toll on him than others.
Bill, excuse me, Bill Livingston, Cleveland
Bill.
Plain Dealer. J.R. Smith is 3 for 15, I think, from the arc. He's obviously going to still take his shots. Could you address how you've played him and whether you think he's due or whether you think it's in his head or what?
We've been lucky on some of his misses. He's a hard guy to guard because he can shoot it and get going with anybody. But again, they've got a lot of hard guys to guard, and you know, those other 3 garner so much attention that you know, the J.R. Smiths of the world, the rebounders, you know, the 5s in general, you know, can really be enhanced by having those other guys around them.
Mark Murphy, Boston Herald. Brad, are you at all surprised by how things have unfolded for Rondo down in Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I am, and I haven't paid as much attention or read every article or even really watched anything on it. Obviously aware of it. I've said many times, you know, about I felt like Rajon had played really well at the start of the year. I thought that, you know, I had coached him during a really tough time for him, just simply because last year he was just overcoming and coming back from that ACL tear and not having any practice, which is really unique. And so it was just a matter of him getting to feel a little bit better. Was around him a lot this summer, was around him a lot this fall. You know, he had the unfortunate hand break at the start of the season, and you know, put him a little bit behind again, although I thought he played pretty well here. So yeah, I was a little bit surprised.
Coach Jeremy Gottlieb, Boston.com. How would you assess how you guys have played defense, just overall, and on their sort of their big guys and big names? And are you planning on switching anything up? I'm sure you can't really get too specific on that, but how would you assess the defense so far?
You know, every game you go in with minor ideas or minor tweaks that you're going to use. But, you know, it's funny, the game of basketball comes first and foremost down to getting back, challenging shots, and rebounding when you're defending. Rebounding is much easier said than done if you can keep all 5 guys matched up and in their vicinity so that you can maintain your blockouts and maintain your positioning to block out. Harder when you have to commit more guys to great players. So that's the balance that we're in.